Chapter 771. 2 hours later, Feng Yu started the game that had changed the data. When the game was loading, he turned back to look at Xia Yi, who was eating snacks. Seeing that he was done, Xia Yi pointed at the takeout box and said, "Your meal is here." After that, Xia Yi continued to eat her snacks while watching the video and laughing happily. Feng Yu didn't say anything. He walked over and took the takeout box. He tried to eat it, but it was cold and not delicious. He frowned and looked up at Xia Yi, who was watching the video happily and eating her snacks. He swallowed the food that was hard to swallow. His eyes were a little hot. He thought of the delicious food that he had eaten every day for the past few months. He took the insulated box from Xiaogua. It was always warm. If he was that busy, she would not have casually ordered takeout for him. Moreover, the takeout had been left there for almost 2 hours. It was already cold. Xiaogua would never let him eat cold and bad food. She would definitely go into the kitchen and cook a delicious meal. When he was so busy, she would carefully prepare coffee and water for him. She took care of him in every possible way. Xiaogua, she was really a very gentle girl. Why did he only want to give his body to Xia Yi in the past and didn't notice her good side? Xiaogua was so good to him. Why did he take her body and hurt her so cruelly? Feng Yu ate the rice. A tear fell from the corner of his eye. The tear dripped into the food and was eaten by him. When the cold food entered his stomach, he felt a little uncomfortable. He pressed his stomach and smiled bitterly. He was a little disappointed. Ever since Xiaogua had gone missing, he hadn't eaten on time for a long time. It had also been a long time since he had drunk the most fragrant and delicious coffee. Every morning, that beautiful and sweet girl would not be standing downstairs of the phone corporation, holding a thermos and waiting for him against the wind. When she saw him, she would call out, "Ayu, hurry up, it's time to eat." When he got off work, she would occasionally wake up from the sofa. She would rub her eyes and ask him, "Are you off work?" When he came home at night, he would always receive a message from her. "Are you home?" After coming out of the bathroom, he lay on the bed and received another message from her. "Good night." When Feng Yu thought of this, she choked up a little. She turned around and glanced at Xia Yi, who was dressed beautifully, but her sitting posture was very rude. Because she was very excited to play the game, her face, which was supposed to have a sweet smile, was making strange and inelegant expressions. "Little Yi." Xia Yi raised her head and quickly lowered it again. "You, what do you want to say? Say it. I'm listening." Feng Yu took a deep breath. "Can you pay attention to your image? If someone sees you, your identity will be suspected." Hearing that she was going to be suspected, Xia Yi even forgot to play the game. She quickly closed her legs and the weird expression disappeared. There was only a little fear on her face. I forgot." She quickly reacted. "That's not right, you. We're at home. There's no one else here. Since we're at home, we should be more at ease. Why do we have to pretend to be a lady? You know that I'm not a lady." Feng Yu suppressed the discomfort in her heart and didn't say that he wasn't using his own body. "Anyway, just be careful. If you get suspected, I can't help you." Perhaps Xia Yi could hear the coldness in Feng Yu's voice. She stopped playing the game and asked, "How's the modification of the data?" Chapter 772. "I've already changed it." Thinking about the data he had changed, he also forgot that Xia Yi's behavior and sitting posture would ruin her beautiful body. He hurriedly sat in front of the computer and looked at the game that had already been loaded. He controlled the game character and slowly ran towards the zombie town. Tanghua and Fengming appeared in the new zombie bride game at the same time. Tanghua knew the cause and effect, but Fengming didn't. He was suspicious of the sudden change of environment. However, he still didn't forget to hug his bride. For the first time, he had the idea of breaking these games and even controlling them. He was a little afraid that the next time they appeared in a new setting, his bride might not be by his side. Where should he go to find her when he was in the dark? "Ming, what are you thinking about?" Fengming replied. "Do you know who those people who always come in and want to break us up are?" "I know. They're bad people." Fengming shook his head and smiled. He stroked Tanghua's head and said, "Actually, you're just a string of data. Maybe you don't understand, but I still want to tell you that there shouldn't be any secrets between husband and wife." "Tanghua, Haha. Data? Huh. You were created by them. I'm very afraid that they'll make the decision to destroy you. If that happens, I'll never see you again. Tangwa held back her laughter and asked, Ming, aren't you just data? Although I really want to tell you that I really am not. When Feng Ming said this, he was very cautious. He held Tangwa's face and kissed her forehead. I should be considered a brainwave. Maybe you still don't understand, but I just want to tell you the truth. Tangwa nodded her head. Ming, are you saying that you should be the same as those people outside? Feng Ming smiled and nodded. Yes, I was one of them. Then why is Ming here? Tangwa asked curiously. Feng Ming smiled bitterly. I've been very interested in games since I was young. When I was sensible, I designed games according to my own ideas in the Feng Corporation. I was born with a talent in this aspect. Other people spent 10 years, but I only needed half a year to study it. Later, I saw the holographic online game in the novel and began to research the concept of holographic online games. Eventually, I succeeded in my research. Tangwa was slightly surprised. So the era of holographic games was actually started by Feng Ming? At that time, I was so happy that I didn't even have time to do many safety tests. I first asked the manufacturer to produce a full-range gaming chamber according to my requirements. Then, I matched a game for myself and secretly tried it. He didn't expect to get himself involved. Then, I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, it was right before I met you. I felt that something was very wrong with my surroundings. I kept feeling that I had been activated by something. Later on, I realized that this was a game. In the end, I found the Feng Corporation's logo in the game and realized that this was a horror game designed by the Feng Corporation's members. System. Great host. I found him. Feng Ming, a genius game designer. He's the younger brother of the Feng Corporation CEO. In terms of seniority, he should be Feng Yu's uncle. The public's evaluation of him was that he was born for the game and died for the game. Tangwa nodded and smiled. Feng Yu's uncle was interesting. This was the first time she had heard of a game designer killing himself while trying to play a game. Then why did Ming tell me this? Bang! Tangwa turned around and looked at the person who had rushed in. Bride. Feng Yu controlled the game character to come in front of Tangwa. The game character stood in front of Tangwa and asked excitedly, What's your name? Chapter 773. Bride. What's your name? After waiting for 10 seconds, the bride's head did not appear to answer his question. Unable to wait any longer, he asked again, Tell me. Xiaoyi sat next to the computer. She did not understand why Feng Yu was so agitated and anxious. It was as if the bride was very important to him. Just as Xiaoyi thought that Feng Yu valued the game, a thought flashed through her mind. She stared at the bride's game character with her eyes wide open. She was both shocked and frightened. To be able to make Feng Yu take this seriously and seriously confirm the name of a game character, this bride can't be the owner of this body, Tangwa, right? Xiaoyi did not dare to think further. From the looks of it, Feng Yu was definitely going to bring Tangwa out. Would she return to the computer and become the poor girl's brainwaves? If it had been the first few days, Xiaoyi might not have hesitated. After all, this was not her body and it was not a big deal to return it. However, she had already owned this body for more than a month. She had gotten used to it and enjoyed everything about it. Even the other party's hobbies overlapped with hers. Although she had been tortured by the game character a few days ago, she still enjoyed playing games and live streaming. She enjoyed being watched by millions of fans on the internet. Xiaoyi bit her lip as she carefully tugged at Feng Yu's sleeve. He did not turn around. You, is there something wrong with this bride? She asked softly. Feng Yu did not answer Xiaoyi's question. Instead, he stared at the bride's head, hoping that the words he wanted would appear. You, could she be Tangwa's brainwaves? Xiaoyi continued to ask. She was panicking as she grabbed onto Feng Yu's sleeve. Are you going to find her and send me back to the computer? This time, Feng Yu finally paid attention to her. Of course, little E. You have taken over her body. Of course, you have to return it to Xiaoguo. Don't worry. When she returns, I won't leave you alone. I will find a suitable body for you. This time, he would not make the same decision as before. He would not find an innocent person just to take over Xiaoyi's body. When he had lost Xiaoguo, he had also learned many things. His merciless actions would only bring endless pain to the person who had lost it. He had never expected that he would be the one who would suffer the most. If he could turn back time, he would definitely not use the same method to deceive and hurt Xiaoguo. Even if he wanted Xiaoyi to come out, he would choose another method instead of an innocent person. Feng Yu's heart was filled with bitterness. He understood his selfishness, but the price he had to pay for it was too great. Xiaoyi felt a chill in her heart. She looked at Feng Yu's pained expression and finally realized something terrible. Her voice was trembling and sharp. You like her? You like her, don't you? Xiaoyi grabbed Feng Yu's arm hard and shook it. She kept asking, You like her, like this girl named Tanguo, right? I finally understand. You want to find her not because she's just your friend. Most importantly, you like her. Feng Yu's expression changed. He pushed Xiaoyi's hand away and looked at her seriously. Yes, I like her. He liked her very much. After losing her, he felt as if he had lost half of his heart. What about me? Xiaoyi almost lost her voice. Then what am I? Chapter 774. Faced with Xiaoyi's question, Feng Yu remained calm. I'm sorry. So, you don't like me anymore and you're only going to apologize to me? When did you guys start dating? Xiaoyi could not accept this. She believed that having a boyfriend like Feng Yu was the luckiest and happiest thing in her life. They had been through a lot together. In those few years, she was the only one who stayed by his side until late at night. How could he stop liking her just like that? Feng Yu patted Xiaoyi's shoulder. When Xiaoguo is released, I won't give up on finding a suitable body for you. Literally, I will bring you out. This is my promise to you, and it will never change. But you also promised me that we would get married once I'm released. Xiaoyi bit her lip. Why can this promise be changed? Right then, a sentence appeared above the bride's head on the computer screen, attracting the attention of both of them. My name is Tanguo. Who are you? Feng Yu almost burst into tears when he saw this sentence. He subconsciously pushed Xiaoyi away and quickly put his hands on the keyboard to type out what he wanted to say. Xiaoguo, is that you? I'm Feng Yu. Xiaoguo, I've been looking for you for a long time. I'm Feng Yu. Do you remember? I'm Feng Yu, your boyfriend. You have to bring me lunch every day and accompany me to work in the afternoon. At night, we'll go to the restaurant for dinner. When I get home, you'll send me a message to ask if I'm home. You'll also send me a goodnight message before you go to bed. There had never been a day when he left. Xiaoyi looked at Feng Yu's anxious expression and reddened eyes. He was so touched that he almost shed tears. She finally confirmed that he really loved the owner of this body deeply. Feng Yu was very emotional. When he designed this game, the bride's name was not Tanguo. She said that her name was Tanguo. She could only be Tanguo. As long as she was Tanguo, all the abnormalities in the game could be explained. There was another person who was extremely shocked. When Feng Ming heard the words of the player who had accidentally intruded, his facial expression changed. Feng Yu? Feng Yu? He hugged his bride tightly, looking more and more puzzled. If he remembered correctly, his elder brother's son should be called Feng Yu. He was currently in the game and did not know how much time had passed in the real world. He only knew that Feng Yu was in her 3rd year of high school when he got into trouble. Feng Yu was 6 years younger than him, but she did have a unique understanding of games since she was young. From the words just now, he analyzed it. The person Feng Yu was asking about was his bride, Tanguo. He was so anxious and agitated, saying that she was his girlfriend. Was he here to look for her? He even said so much about the interaction between the two, which made him feel especially uncomfortable. Hold on, did he overlook something? His bride was not a character in the game, but a real person? Feng Ming lowered his head and glanced at his sweet and obedient bride. He held her waist tightly and lowered his head to ask in her ear, Guo, are you human? These words were not displayed on the computer interface. From Feng Yu's point of view, she could not see the interaction between the two. I told you a long time ago. Tanguo laughed softly. She had told him a long time ago, but he did not believe her. Could he blame her? Feng Ming could not help but kiss her cheek. He laughed softly and said, That's really good. It turned out that he liked a person who had the same brainwaves as him, not a character in the game. Chapter 775. He suddenly felt that their brilliant life had just begun. They could still be together for a long, long time. It was really great. All his regrets were gone. He said he's your boyfriend? Feng Ming didn't ignore this point, but his bride didn't seem to have much feelings for Feng Yu. Tanguo nodded. I'll explain it to you later. Okay. He believed in his lover. From the moment they met, she had attracted his attention. When he found out that she had human brainwaves, he knew that all of this was not simple. Compared to hearing rumors, he was more willing to hear her say it with his own ears. He would believe whatever she said. Tanguo was very satisfied. She looked at Feng Yu's game character with a confused expression. Are you Feng Yu? I'm sorry, I don't know you, and I don't remember anything between us. Feng Ming was a little surprised. His guess was right. There must be some unknown secret. Xiaoguo, how could you not remember me? When Feng Yu saw this sentence, he almost collapsed. Xiaoguo, who had been so good to him, how could she not remember him? How was that possible? He scratched his hair hard and continued to tap on the keyboard. His eyes were red as he stared at the bride's character on the game interface. My name is Feng Yu. We're boyfriend and girlfriend. You like me very much, and I like you very much too. We're very loving. Before you got into trouble, you even ordered a cake for me. There was a sentence written on it that I'll never forget. That sentence was, liking you is more passionate than liking games. Feng Yu's eyes were sore. We've known each other since the game. A few months ago, whether we were dating or eating, our conversation was always about games. When you came to me, you always asked if there were any new games, and when I came to you, I also asked you how the new game experience was. Later, you said that you seemed to like me even more and even changed the live broadcast time for me. You changed the original 8 hours to 4 hours. Before this, I never knew that you could cook delicious food, make fragrant coffee, and wake up so regularly. Since the day you first came to the Feng's building, I could eat the hot food you made for lunch every day, and my stomach rarely acted up. You said that my taste wasn't good, but you specially chose a lot of clothes and accessories for me. You have a house full of them, and I have a house full of them. They were all chosen by you. This watch on my wrist is a birthday gift from you. I've been wearing it, and I've been waiting for you to appear. Feng Yu's eyes were hot, and tears unknowingly rolled down her cheeks. Ever since your accident, I seem to have forgotten that I need to eat every meal. I wake up several times at night, and my stomach is in pain. When I opened the drawer, I realized that the stomach medicine you prepared for me was finished last week. Xiaoguo was so good. Why had he been so cruel to her in the past? Hearing all this, Xiaoyi was a little stunned. So much had happened between them? The girl named Tanguo was indeed very good to Ayu. It was no wonder that Ayu liked her. Xiaoguo, do you still remember all of this? Tanguo shook her head. I don't remember. Xiaoguo. Feng Yu controlled the game character and rushed in front of Tanguo. Because he had changed the data, the game character had become very agile. Don't be afraid. I'm here to take you away. I'm here to take you out. No, I'm not leaving. Tanguo hurriedly hugged Feng Ming's arm and suddenly understood. I understand. You're a bad person who knows how to make up stories. You're also here to break me and my husband up. Feng Ming, he also understood. His wife didn't care about her life when she messed with people. Chapter 776. Husband, quickly drag this bad guy out and whip him. Tanguo hugged Feng Ming's arm and said, These bad guys always like to break you and me up. Feng Yu wanted to say something, but many zombies rushed in from outside the door and grabbed his game character. They tied him to a tall pillar and whipped him fiercely with whips dipped in salt water. Feng Yu looked at the computer interface in a daze. His mind was filled with the thought that Xiaoguo didn't remember. She didn't remember everything that once belonged to them. She treated the zombie king in the game as her husband and said those words of dependence. His heart was broken. Feng Yu was stunned for a long time. Finally, he decided to destroy the zombie king in Zombie Town. No matter what, he had to bring Xiaoguo out. His fingers danced on the keyboard. Even if the company had urgent matters related to holographic games, he said that he was not free for the time being and asked them to stop the project. The most important thing now was to find his Xiaoguo. This time, he would not lose her again. He wanted to reset the game, but he realized that he still could not reset it. He was afraid that there would be problems if he forcefully reset it, so he simply copied the original version and changed the data like before. He found a pattern. As long as the game was started, Xiao Guo would appear in the new game. Tangwa saw everything Feng Yu did through the computer and laughed softly. Naive. From the day she decided to enter the game, she had never thought of going out. She wanted Feng Yu to know of her existence. She was clearly within his reach, but he could not achieve what he wanted no matter what. She wanted him to live in guilt and pain forever. These few days, Feng Yu was immersed in changing the game data. He even had a bold idea. He wanted to destroy the Zombie King and let himself replace the Zombie King to slowly gain Xiaoguo's trust. Then, he would think of a way to bring her out. When he was hungry, he would order takeout. When he was thirsty, he would find something to drink. When he really did not have time, he would go directly to the tap to drink tap water. Xiaoyi sat at the side with a numb expression. She sent an announcement to the live stream that she had something to do and would not be live streaming for the next few days. She also sat at the side and watched Feng Yu go crazy. She had seen Feng Yu busy at work, but she had never seen him like this. In order to achieve his goal, he did not care about anything. She had to confirm that Feng Yu really liked that girl named Tangwa. Looking at Feng Yu's smile, Xia Yi broke out in a cold sweat. At first, she thought that Feng Yu liked Tangwa too much. One day, when she accidentally overheard Feng Yu's words, she was so scared that she broke out in a cold sweat. Xiaoguo, I'll definitely bring you out this time. I won't hurt you anymore, okay? I'm sorry, Xiaoguo. If I had known that you were so important to me, I wouldn't have devised this scheme to take your body away. Xiaoyi widened her eyes and couldn't help but take a few steps back. Her heart was thumping and her mind was blank as if it had exploded. It took her a long time to come back to her senses. She looked at Feng Yu's back with lingering fear. So what happened last time was not an accident. Was it Yu's plan? I don't know either. In this scheme of love, I succeeded in achieving my goal, but in the end, I was a failure. Feng Yu seemed to have forgotten Xia Yi's existence. As he wrote the code, he recalled the past between him and Tangwa. Unconsciously, he said everything that he had planned from the beginning. I'll return your body to you. When you're better, we'll go see Uncle and Auntie and confirm the wedding. Chapter 777. My mother has asked about you several times already. I don't even know how to tell her. Xiaoyi felt a chill down her spine. As for little E, we'll think of something. I won't do anything to hurt others. Xiaoyi's heart sank. If she did not have a suitable body, she would forever be a brainwave without a body. Would she have to stay in the computer until she died? She pursed her lips as she looked at Feng Yu's crazy expression. Finally, she decided to leave. She turned around and returned to her room to grab her card, phone, and identification card. Finally, she saw the pile of expensive jewelry. Gritting her teeth, she quickly put some of them into her bag. She did not want to become a brainwave again. She did not know what she would experience. She wanted to leave this place. As long as she left this place, Feng Yu would not be able to find her. This body would then belong to her. Tangwa had already taken Feng Yu away. This body was given to her by Feng Yu. She did not know anything. Why should she bear the consequences? Previously, Feng Yu had mentioned to her that he wanted to take over other people's bodies. However, she had rejected him. Therefore, she did not have to take responsibility for this. Why should she take responsibility? She was the one who had lost the most. It turned out that Feng Yu liked her so much. When Feng Yu was not paying attention, Xiaoyi gently opened the door and left. That's the truth. Tangwa asked the system to show Feng Ming the scene in Feng Yu's room, as well as what he had said. Since they were both members of the Feng family, it was necessary for her to tell him. She thought that Feng Ming was quite cute. Even if Feng Yu was his nephew, she would still torture him. She would never be soft-hearted towards her enemies. If Feng Ming still wanted to plead for mercy after hearing this, she would have to throw him into the bin. Dear host, Xia Yi has run away. The system had been monitoring the outside world. He had seen Xia Yi run away with his own eyes. Feeling a little indignant, he wondered if he should remind Feng Yu. He would definitely catch Xia Yi. Tangwa smiled. There's no need to remind him. Feng Yu will catch her when he realizes what happened. Let them hurt each other. It's none of my business. Feng Ming glanced at his bride's smiling face and suddenly felt a chill on his back. He quickly hugged her. Gua Gua has suffered. Do you still like him? Feng Ming asked uncertainly. Was that nephew with a hole in his brain really his biological nephew? Tangwa shook her head. Why would I like him? Is there something wrong with my brain, or was it eaten by zombies? Does Gua Gua like me? Feng Ming asked expectantly. According to the current timeline, my accident happened many years ago. My body has long been destroyed, and I will never be able to leave. But Gua Gua's body is still here. If she wanted to go out, he really could not stop her. Just based on the fact that Tangwa could easily show him what was going on outside, this bride of his was not simple. Do you want me to go out? Of course not. Feng Ming hurriedly said, but Gua Gua wants to return to reality. I can't stop you, even though I really want to. You're so obedient. Tangwa was in a good mood. Since you're so obedient, I won't go out. Tangwa smiled and said, the online world is actually not bad. She did not hide it. I didn't plan to go out from the beginning, but I didn't expect to meet you. Chapter 778. Feng Ming was overjoyed and quickly hugged his wife. Then I'll accompany Gua Gua to play in this online world forever. How does that sound? Okay. How does Gua Gua want to deal with that brat? Feng Ming's hands were itching. If possible, he wanted to beat Feng Yu up. Tangwa stopped smiling and looked at Feng Yu, who was still coding crazily. She chuckled. Can't get what you want? Isn't that the worst outcome? Not only do I want him to not get what he wants, I want him to see us being lovey-dovey, getting married, and being together forever. She looked up at Feng Ming with a smile. Ah Ming, don't you think this is cruel? No, it's not cruel at all. He deserves it. Ah Ming, you mean that you'll support me no matter what I want to do? Tangwa changed the topic. Why are you so unprincipled? Feng Ming hugged her happily and kissed her forehead. His eyes were full of smiles. How can principles be more important than a wife? I'll have more in the future. If I don't have a wife, I won't be able to find one. Of course, he would support his wife no matter what she wanted to do. Looking at how happy she was, his mind was filled with thoughts of following her in everything. He would listen to whatever she wanted to do. In front of her, he was willing to hold her in the most dazzling place and watch her shine. If she was a star, he would never be the moon. He wanted to be the dark sky that surrounded her tightly and let her feel his presence at all times. System. Piffed. It's still that familiar soul. First, he sold his own brother, and now he's selling his own nephew. He's the same kind of person as his great host. Such an unprincipled person. He really liked porridge, especially when he saw the energy increase. The system felt that everything was bright. Following the great host was indeed a good thing. Xiai took everything that she could and quickly left the city that she was not familiar with. She chose a remote place. She knew that Feng Yu came from a good family and that he was just doing game design and development as a hobby. It was easy for a rich young master like him to find someone. Along the way, she changed many things and finally came to a small town. It was impossible to rent a house quickly and use her original account to livestream. She didn't know how to do anything else. She was even more unwilling to be a waitress or wash dishes. She could only livestream games. She bought the equipment and went to the livestream platform to start her new life. However, everything was different from what she had imagined. She was a new streamer, and there weren't many people watching her. She couldn't enjoy the glory she had before, and the rewards she received every day were unimaginable. After a few days, she was a little. When he was tidying up the house, he found that she had brought a lot of gems, diamond necklaces, and gold jewelry. Thinking that there should still be a few million in the card, he felt even more relieved. For this reason, she specially took a bus to a faraway city the next day. It took her 2 days to withdraw the cash from there, and then came back here. She thought that she didn't spend much, so the money should be enough to last her for a while. But she was used to using luxurious things in that luxurious house. When she went shopping, she couldn't help but buy expensive things. Within a year, she had to go out to withdraw cash several times. One day, She put the card into the ATM. She didn't look at the amount. After she entered a number, the interface reminded her that the balance was insufficient. She was stunned and quickly checked the amount. She panicked when she found that there were only a few hundred yuan. How could it be? She remembered that there were a few million yuan in it. Chapter 779. Why are there only a few hundred yuan left? Xia Yi was deeply confused. She was sure that she couldn't have spent all the money in the past year. She could only have 300,000 to 500,000 yuan at most. Feng Yu hadn't found her after so long. Maybe Feng Yu was still studying the game and couldn't take care of her. So, Xia Yi decided to go to the bank to check the account and see where the money was going. When she found out that she had donated hundreds of thousand yuan to the Welfare Institute every month for the past year, she felt terrible. She heard the lady at the counter praising her. She thought that she had come to ask because she didn't transfer the money. Xia Yi felt aggrieved. She didn't know that Tangwa donated hundreds of thousand yuan to the Welfare Institute every month. Rich people were so bored that they didn't know the suffering of poor people. She didn't know what these rich people were thinking. Why did they have to donate so much money? Xia Yi felt indignant. In the end, she could only go back in disappointment. She had no cash in hand, so she could only sell the valuables slowly. Diamonds and gems were not easy to sell. She couldn't estimate their value. She could only go to the gold shop to sell the gold jewelry first. She also asked if they accepted gems and diamonds. The shop clearly said that they didn't. Xia Yi regretted it at that time. If she had taken a bag of gold jewelry, her life would have been much better. At that time, she left in a hurry. When she opened the jewelry box, the gold jewelry was obviously not as eye-catching as gems and diamonds. She chose to take a lot of them, so there were very few gold jewelry. Because of this, Xia Yi had to reduce her food and clothing. She was used to living a luxurious life, so she felt uncomfortable after a few days. She had to start thinking of ways to sell the diamond necklaces and gems. As for Feng Yu, by the time he realized what had happened, Xia Yi had already disappeared. He couldn't find Xia Yi in a short time, so he could only send someone to keep an eye on her. She will show up one day. Feng Yu sat on the chair. His face was pale, and his beard was unkempt. The only neat thing about him was his decent suit and tie. The expensive watch on his wrist looked brand new. Now, he didn't even touch it. He was afraid that he would break it, and it wouldn't look good. She's not used to the outside life, Feng Yu said with a sinister smile. Once those jewels show up, we'll be able to find her location. Keep an eye out for her and bring her back when you find her. Remember, Feng Yu's sinister smile disappeared and her expression became incomparably gentle. Don't hurt her, especially her body. You can't leave a single mark, and you can't forcefully pinch her wrist. Understood. When Feng Yu was the only one left in the office, he logged into the game as a player and looked for opportunities to talk to Tangwa. Originally, he wanted to eliminate the Zombie King and replace him with himself. He didn't expect that after he erased the Zombie King's data, the other party would still appear in the end. He didn't know where the problem was, but now he could only take a step back and go to the game every day to meet Xiaogua. When he entered the game, Tangwa was watching the zombies play. She sat on the doorstep and nibbled on a chicken drumstick. She looked cute and beautiful. No matter what she ate or did, there was a sense of beauty. Feng Yu thought to herself. She was even more determined to find Xiaogua's body and not let Xia Yi ruin it. Chapter 780. Xiaogua. He couldn't see the bride's expression, but he could imagine what kind of expression she should have. Do you remember everything that happened between us today? His game character was also sitting by the side, and this sentence appeared above his head. Tangwa glanced at Feng Yu, who was in pain. This game was very strange. The game character could completely show Feng Yu's painful expression. It was really interesting. No. Tangwa glanced at him. You should go. My husband will be angry later. He will tie you up and whip you with salt water. Xiaogua, do you want to go out with me? When you go out, everything will be clear. Why should I go out? Tangwa blinked. You want me to go out? Then let me ask you, how did I get in? This question made Feng Yu's heart stop. How did she get in? It was all because of his scheme. It was because he wanted to take her body and devised a vicious scheme. He really didn't expect that he would fall in love with her. After losing her, He lived in pain every day. You were trying out the game cabin. That's why you got into trouble. Feng Yu had to lie. If she knew that everything was a scheme, she wouldn't have gone with him. He could only take her out first. The rest could be explained later. At that time, she could do whatever she wanted. He was willing to use his life to make up for the hurt he had caused her. Tang saw through his thoughts. She lowered her eyes and chuckled. Make up for it? How? The person who should die was still dead. The person who should disappear had disappeared long ago. Hurt was hurt. Even if it was repaired, there was still a fist-sized scar on his heart. How could it be the same as before? If she hadn't shown her love for Feng Yu and cared for him at all costs, how could he have realized that everything he did was hurting someone? If he hadn't known that Tangwa liked him very much and hadn't experienced her gentle care, he wouldn't have been so disappointed after suddenly losing her. He had been immersed in happiness for months. If Tangwa wasn't important to him, he would only be happy that Xiai had woken up. Even though he had already fallen in love with her, he struggled and hesitated in his heart. In the end, because she was a living person and far less pitiful than Xiai, who was just a brainwave, he still did it without hesitation. Feng Yu was only satisfied with the selfishness in his heart. He had never considered the feelings of others. Now he wanted to take her out only because she was important to him, and he had already fallen in love with her. In other words, he suddenly realized that he had personally destroyed the most beautiful thing he owned. He believed that no one would not regret it. The better she was, the more Xiai's flaws would be magnified in front of him. In the past, no matter how good Xiai was, it couldn't compare to the good he had lost. Wretched wretches should live in pain for the rest of their lives because of the mistakes they made. Such people did not deserve happiness and forgiveness. Why should I be with you just because you wanted to make it up to me after you hurt me and fell in love with me? How could there be such an easy thing? Feng Ming walked over from afar and saw Feng Ming flirting with his wife again. Although Feng Yu was his nephew, he still wanted to beat him up. He walked over and lifted Feng Yu's game character without saying a word. He beat him up and threw him to the zombies to let them bite Feng Yu to death. Chapter 781. Feng Yu sat in front of the computer helplessly and saw the words "game failed" on the screen. Perhaps he should have promoted the holographic game earlier and used the gaming capsule to meet Xiaogua. Feng Yu was a man of action. He returned to the company that day and restarted the holographic game, a project that had been stagnant for almost a year. Because of his decision, the Feng Corporation suffered a lot of losses. However, the game was only a part of the Feng Corporation. The CEO and his wife thought that something had happened to Feng Yu and didn't care about it. How could the game be more important than their son? Especially after what happened to Feng Ming, they didn't dare to let the same thing happen to Feng Yu. This time, the whole company was very happy with Feng Yu's return. Originally, everything was almost ready the last time. This time, it took a month for them to test the security of the gaming capsule. Then, they spent another 2 months to fix the problem of the game's connection. Next, it was to promote its use and attract a large number of players who were willing to participate in the closed beta. In the end, the response was very good. Half a year later, the Feng Corporation's gaming capsule went on sale all over the country. The world began to enter the holographic era. Following that, countless games began to connect with the Feng Corporation and released new games. Because of this, the Feng Corporation became the biggest winner. Everyone was happy, but only Feng Yu was unhappy. Until one day, the person he sent to find Xiai called and said that he found traces of the gemstones in a jewelry store. He had found Xiai and was bringing her back. Bring her to my villa on the mountain. Don't tell anyone. Feng Yu's eyes darkened, especially when he saw Xiai's pale and thin face in the photo. He was furious. How could she treat Xiaogua's perfect body like this? This time, he would not let Xiai escape. He would protect Xiaogua's body well for her and not let anyone hurt it. Not long after, Xiai was brought to the villa on the mountain. After Feng Yu finished the game project, he took a break for himself and no one suspected anything. On the day Xiai was brought back, he moved into the villa. When Xiai was caught, she was extremely panicked. She was afraid of losing this body. She really liked the feeling of having a body. She didn't want to be a brainwave again. She didn't want to go back to the computer, as if it was just a string of data. After being locked up in the villa, She had been thinking of ways to escape, but Feng Yu was already prepared. Firstly, she had no ability, and secondly, she had no intelligence. How could she escape? It should be said that if it wasn't for the card and the jewelry, it would have been difficult for her to survive in this world. When Feng Yu opened the door, she saw Xia Yi shivering in the corner with her arms around her knees. "Little Yi, why did you leave without saying a word?" Lin Yiqian asked. Feng Yu walked in front of Xia Yi and asked with a gentle smile. Her cold fingers pinched Xia Yi's chin. "You've lost weight." Xia Yi's heart was cold. Looking into Feng Yu's gentle eyes, she didn't think that Feng Yu cared about her. She only felt goosebumps all over her body. "Your face is so pale. You must have had a hard time recently, right?" Xia Yi trembled all over. She didn't understand what Feng Yu wanted to do. "Little Yi, this body does not belong to you. You can't do as you please. From now on, I hope that you will eat your meals obediently and take good care of your body. It would be best if your body could return to its original state within a month." Feng Yu let go of Xia Yi's chin and chuckled. "I've already developed a method that only punishes brain waves without harming the body. You don't want to experience it, do you?" Chapter 782. Xia Yi resisted in her heart. She knew that Feng Yu didn't expel her brainwaves for the time being to prevent this body from being damaged. A body without brainwaves might die. Even if it didn't die, it would only become a vegetable. After being in a vegetative state for too long, the body's functions would gradually deteriorate. Even if she didn't study much, she still knew this. Many years ago, there was a case of a vegetative person waking up on TV. Therefore, Feng Yu didn't care about her at all. It wasn't that he didn't have the heart to expel her brainwaves, but that he wanted her to live well in this body. She didn't want to cooperate. Why should she take care of someone else's body? She didn't take over this body by force. She could only blame Feng Yu. If he hadn't done this behind her back, would so many things have happened? She was a victim. If she hadn't come out from the beginning, she wouldn't have been greedy for the beauty of this body. She was just forced to accept it. Now, she had become a sinner. Therefore, she wanted to resist. Feng Yu wanted her to take good care of her body, but she didn't. After Feng Yu left, she pinched herself hard and banged her head against the wall with all her might, trying to injure herself all over. Feng Yu didn't want her to have a good life. She wouldn't let him have his way. Xia Yi, who was hurting herself, couldn't help but cry. Who did she offend? Why did she have to suffer this? Feng Yu liked her so much. Why was he so cruel to her now? He was the one who brought her out. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't be here. She was angry, wronged, and sad. Her heart was full of revenge. She wanted to destroy this body so that Feng Yu would never be able to do what he wanted. When Feng Yu came to see Xia Yi for the second time, his eyes turned red when he saw her bruised body. He walked over and pinched Xia Yi's chin hard. He wanted to slap her. Xia Yi opened her eyes and said sarcastically, "Hit me. Anyway, this isn't my body. Hit me hard. If you hurt me, I deserve it." "Very good." Feng Yu gently let go of Xia Yi. He touched her cheek and carried her out. He took her to her room and put her on a strange chair. "I said that if you don't listen to me, you'll be punished." Feng Yu's smile was a bit morbid, gloomy, and scary. Finally, Xia Yi panicked. "No, let go of me." "Feng Yu, what you're doing is harming her body." Feng Yu looked at the restrained Xia Yi, who was still struggling. She shook the remote control in her hand, walked over to her, and squatted down. "How could I bear to hurt Xiaoguo's body? Before she comes back, I will take good care of her body and make sure she doesn't get hurt at all. Little Yi, I didn't want to hurt you at first. However, you're being too naughty." Smiling, Feng Yu pressed the button of the remote control. At that moment, Xia Yi couldn't speak. She couldn't even make a painful expression or shout. Her mind was blank. She only felt pain somewhere. It was so painful that she wanted to die immediately. That kind of pain seemed to make her disappear at any time. Feng Yu was very satisfied with this result. He had been studying this method since the day he knew that Xia Yi had escaped. In the end, it was very successful. If the other party did not shout, Xiaoguo's throat would not be damaged. If she didn't show any expression of pain, it wouldn't ruin the beauty of Xiaoguo's bright face. If she didn't struggle, It wouldn't hurt other parts of her body. Xiaoyi would only feel pain. She didn't want to live anymore. The pain was about to disappear, but she couldn't show it. This was a method that directly attacked her brain waves. It was a good method. Lunatic, Xiaoyi thought as she looked at Feng Yu's smile through her blurry vision. Chapter 783. Compared to Feng Yu and Xiaoyi's days of tormenting each other, Tanghua and Feng Ming's days were filled with dog abuse. System. I suspect that I'm the dog that's being abused every day. Ever since he found out that Tanghua was a human brainwave, she decided not to go out anymore. She wanted to spend the rest of her life with him in the game. Feng Ming decided to study the magical world of the internet in the game. Since the internet was going to be their home in the future, he had to control it as soon as possible, in case something unexpected happened in the future. He was very ambitious. He wanted to become an existence like the legendary mastermind. He wanted to be able to control the entire internet in the world. Everything would be under his control. Only then would he be able to protect his wife and enjoy life with her on the internet. In the world of the internet, they would not be restrained at all. When Tanghua heard this, she was very supportive of him. Although she could control the internet now, no security settings could stop her. However, she relied on her powerful soul power to move unimpeded in this place. Feng Ming was different from her because he only had brainwaves. She also wanted to see if it was possible to control the internet in the internet. For this reason, she provided a lot of information for Feng Ming to study. She even communicated with Emmanuel in the group. Do you have it? Regarding the internet, mastermind, and artificial intelligence, I don't need the latest generation or the outdated ones. It doesn't matter which generation it is. Emmanuel was a little confused. Is the campus bell planning to control the entire internet? As expected of an interstellar person, he guessed the key point immediately. It's not me, it's my boyfriend. He's a little interested in this now. We plan to settle down in the internet world. Oh right, I forgot to tell you a piece of good news. I found a human brainwave in the game. He's my boyfriend now. The friends in the group were stunned. Was this possible? Then this brainwave was definitely not simple. Emmanuel, who lived in the era of advanced network technology, was also curious about two brainwaves falling in love. Campus Bell, if you don't mind me asking, how does it feel to have two brainwaves falling in love? Although the others did not ask, they were also very curious. People in the cultivation world said that it was not strange for two souls to fall in love. Two brainwaves, according to their understanding, should be two consciousnesses. Therefore, they were a little curious as to how two consciousnesses fell in love. Was it to say you love me and I love you every day and then hug each other? The legendary stream of consciousness love. This was a little awesome. We have bodies in the game. We can fall in love like how humans do. We can hug and kiss each other. There's no problem at all. Emmanuel couldn't help but cough lightly. Although they were really curious about this point, there was no need to be so straightforward. School beauty, wait a moment. I'll copy the information to you right away. Tanghua waited for a while before she received the internet technology from the interstellar era. She asked the system to copy it and gave it to Feng Ming. What is this? Feng Ming looked at the green button-like thing in Tanghua's hand. Good stuff. Tanghua smiled and asked Feng Ming to open it. At that time, Feng Ming was stunned. Why did his wife have such advanced internet technology? Of course, he didn't suspect anything. He subconsciously thought that it was something his wife should have, so he started to study it. Tanghua sat at the side and watched Feng Yu torture Xiaoyi every day through the system's surveillance. Chapter 784. Dear host, I've already collected all the evidence of Feng Yu's crimes. No one in the Feng family can exonerate Feng Yu from her crimes. Should I submit it now? Tanghua smiled and said, hand it over. She had to be punished for harming someone's life, didn't she? The law hadn't stipulated this yet, but she had to announce the truth. Connect me to my parents' phones so that they won't be too agitated. As long as I'm living well online and in real life, they won't be so upset. The system did as she asked. Tanghua quickly contacted the family Tang couple and told them the truth. At first, they thought it was unbelievable and didn't believe her. They even thought she was a liar. After a series of evidence was presented to them, They went to Tangwa's live stream and watched the video of her and Xia Yi's appearance. After watching it carefully, they finally accepted their fate. Although the girl in the live stream was their daughter's body, she wasn't their daughter. Tangwa persuaded them for a long time and told them that she was doing well. She told them not to be upset and that Feng Yu would be punished very soon. Guagua, what about your body? Mrs. Tang almost lost her voice. She couldn't let that unknown person keep possessing Guagua's body. When they thought about how their daughter's everything had been taken away by someone else, the family Tang couple only felt anger and sadness. Feng Yu had schemed and done so much just to take away their daughter's body. How could they accept this? Mom, if Xia Yi disappears one day, you don't have to keep my body anymore. Tangwa's figure appeared on the computer screen. That familiar face made the Tang couple unable to hold back their tears. She casually said, "Cremate it." She looked at their sad faces and pulled Feng Ming out of the corner. When they saw a young man suddenly appear, they forgot about their sadness and stared at the man who was holding their daughter's hand. "This is my boyfriend." Tangwa introduced him with a smile. When she saw the look of disbelief on their faces, she guessed that they didn't think Feng Ming was human. He has human brainwaves. His name is Feng Ming. You should be very familiar with this name. The two of them were stunned again. Feng Ming. Wasn't he the kid who had risked his life for the game? His surname was Feng. Feng Yu's uncle? The two of them looked at each other with dissatisfaction. "Uncle, Auntie, I don't want that nephew. I only want Xiaogua." Feng Ming hurriedly expressed his attitude. "In reality, I'm already dead. It has nothing to do with them. Not only did that brat plagiarize my research results, he also used such a despicable method to harm Xiaogua. Logically speaking, I won't stand by his side." The family Tang elders immediately thought of many things. Their daughter was probably unwilling to come out. They were sad, but their daughter wasn't really dead. She just couldn't have a body. Thinking about it this way, they weren't that sad. That Feng Yu was a lunatic. He wanted his daughter to go out. With his crazy actions, who knew what would happen? Since their daughter liked the online world and had a human brainwave to accompany her, they could meet whenever they wanted as long as there was an internet connection. It wasn't unacceptable. Just like that, Feng Ming passed the two of them and was officially able to hug his wife. On this day, Feng Yu was in the room, carefully feeding Xia Yi, who was unwilling to eat and was a little dispirited. He even had a gentle expression on his face. Suddenly, the door was broken open. A few uniformed police officers rushed in and handcuffed him. Xia Yi thought in a daze, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She was finally saved. Feng Yu had been captured, so this body belonged to her. Chapter 785. With countless pieces of evidence and videos as proof, the Feng family had no way of exonerating Feng Yu. However, Feng Yu's actions in the case were exactly what the law was lacking. He expelled Tangwa's brainwaves from her brain and replaced them with another person's. The Feng Corporation expressed that they were willing to do their best to find Tangwa's brainwaves. Feng Yu himself also expressed that he was willing to use the remaining time of his life to find Tangwa. Hence, Feng Yu became a special prisoner in prison. He was the only prisoner who had a computer and could surf the internet. Xia Yi, who was still occupying Tangwa's body, did not live a free life as she had expected. Instead, she was controlled and under pressure from various parties. She had to undergo various tests. If this matter had not been exposed, Xia Yi's fate would not have been as bad as it was now. It was believed that many Frankenstein monsters would be very interested in doing this experiment. Because Tangwa's body belonged to the family Tang, Xia Yi was much more relaxed. Even if she cooperated with the tests, nothing bad would happen to her and she would be treated well. However, this kind of life where she had no freedom and was mentally destroyed every day was the real torture for Xia Yi. Later, she repeated the same trick and wanted to protest by hurting herself, but in the end, she did not even have the space to move. The family Tang couple had communicated with Tangwa before, so they turned a blind eye to all of this. Seeing Xia Yi being mentally tortured, they felt a little happy in their hearts. The only people who were crazy were Tangwa's fans. They knew that the person who streamed for them in the last month was not Tangwa at all. At that time, they only felt that it was a little strange, But because they were separated by a screen and their attention was focused on the game, they did not notice it and felt very sad about it. In the end, they went to confirm the style of the live stream between the two and found many differences. No matter how similar the two were, they were still two different people. Feng Yu told everyone that he had found Tanghua. She just did not want to come back and wanted everyone to help him. At first, everyone believed him and had hope. They really wanted Tanghua to come back. Some people were interested in this experiment, and some people cared about Tanghua. For example, the millions of fans cared about the streamer who brought them joy. They hoped that one day, they would be able to see her live stream horror games for them on the screen. They hoped that they would be so scared that they would tremble in their blankets, but they could not help but stare at the screen. Although Tanghua's live broadcast room hasn't been opened yet, her fans were already used to it. They would go in every day to watch her live broadcast. They would leave comments in her previous status, telling her everything that happened today, hoping that she would come back one day. As for the post that Xiaoyi had once posted, under the collective protest of the fans, it was deleted by the platform. All Xiaoyi of the live stream was of the live stream. In this live broadcast room, they did not want to see anything about Xiaoyi. When everyone found out that Feng Yu had discovered Tanghua's existence, they were all very happy. Feng Yu also excitedly entered the game to find Tanghua. He wanted to prove that Little Guo really existed. That way, everyone would help him bring Xiaoguo out of this place. That day, the scene of Feng Yu entering the game was broadcasted live, and hundreds of millions of people watched it. Feng Yu controlled the game character and walked to the bride expectantly. He asked carefully, "Bride, tell me, what is your name?" He waited for her to say, "My name is Tanghua." Chapter 786. Everyone was waiting expectantly for the bride to say that her name was Tanghua. She was someone they were familiar with and had been waiting for a long time. However, only one sentence popped up above the bride's head. "Who are you? Are you here to take me away?" Feng Yu's expectant expression froze and his smile stiffened. He looked at the sentence that popped up above the bride's head in disbelief. His fingers flew across the keyboard. "Bride, your name is Tanghua, right? This place is full of zombies. I'm really scared. Can you really take me away?" This sentence popped up above the bride's head again. Feng Yu stared at that sentence in disbelief. His eyes were red as he typed quickly. "Your name is Tanghua, right? You must be Tanghua. You must be Tanghua. All right, since that's the case, I believe you. I'll go with you. But we have to be careful. Don't let the Zombie King find out." There were no words like, "My name is Tanghua." The words that appeared above the bride's head were all written by him in the original program. They were all set by him. The people who were watching the live broadcast were also silent. This game character could not possibly be Tanghua. Even if a person lost their memory, they would still be able to understand what the other party was asking. "I have 3 games like this. She might be in another game," Feng Yu said quickly. Feng Yu said quickly. He wiped the tears off his face and forced a smile. She should be hiding in another game. He quickly started the Vampire's Bride game and carefully went upstairs to the room where the bride was staying. Seeing the bride sitting on the chair, he controlled the game character to walk over and asked, "Xiaoguo, I'm here to take you away. Are you willing to come with me this time? Are you here to save me?" Feng Yu's heart sank. He did not give up and continued to type. "Xiaoguo, although you don't remember me, I still want to take you away. I'll take you out of this online world and return your body to you. I'm willing to use my life to atone for my sins. Come with me, okay? Thank you, kind person. I don't want to become a vampire. I like the sun and the outside world. The Blood Emperor is very powerful. When we leave, we must not alarm him." The bride did not understand and only answered according to the fixed words set by the program. Feng Yu couldn't stop his tears from flowing out. He raised his hand to wipe them away, but they wouldn't dry no matter how hard he tried. He forced a smile and said, "Xiaoguo has a jumpy personality. She might have gone to the 3rd game to play. Just wait. She'll definitely be there this time. She'll definitely be there." Feng Yu forcefully opened his eyes and activated the last Ghost King's bride. Everyone looked at his pained, expectant, and fearful expression, and their hearts ached. They did not sympathize with Feng Yu, but fell into deep thought. Don't hurt an innocent person with selfish thoughts, and don't cheat other people's feelings. Maybe one day, this person will become the most important person in your heart. If you hurt her, there will be no future. Don't do things that you will regret. There is no medicine for regret in this world. Just like Feng Yu, he hurt another innocent girl for another person. Who would have thought that this girl was so good that he didn't even know that his heart was moved? Looking at his sorry and helpless appearance, one could tell how much regret he had in his heart. Xiaoguo, she'll definitely be here. Feng Yu muttered to himself. This time, I'll ask her what your name is. She'll definitely say that she's called Tanguo. I'll ask her if I'll bring her out. She'll definitely say yes. Chapter 787. She will definitely be in this game. Feng Yu muttered to himself several times. His pale fingers trembled on the keyboard. The audience watched as he started the Ghost King's Bride game, and the whole interface became gloomy. This time, he didn't rush to the place where the bride was locked up and ask if her name was Tanguo like he did before. He just stared at the game interface and controlled his trembling hands with a smile on his face. Sorry, I have to prepare and think about how to communicate with Xiaoguo later. If she knows the truth, she will definitely hate me. He wiped his tears. She has always been very gentle and kind to me. When she is free, she will prepare breakfast for me. Every day, she will deliver lunch on time. In the afternoon, she will usually work with me. In the evening, we will go for dinner. Every day, she will say good morning and good night to me. Have you reached home safely? Xiaoguo has always been very good to me. If I see her and she ignores me or scolds me, I will definitely not be able to accept it. So, I have to prepare and think about what she will scold me. Otherwise, I don't know how to communicate with her when she scolds me later. Everyone was waiting. Although they all felt that the probability of Tanguo being in the game was very low, they did not stop Feng Yu when they saw his expression. They had already watched 2 games. It was not a big deal to watch one more. It would not take much time. What if Tanguo was really in the game? Mr. and Mrs. Feng looked at Feng Yu with complicated expressions. They had never thought that their son, who they were so proud of, would come up with such a cruel method to save a brainwave that had been dead for many years. Many girls liked Feng Yu, but they only liked Tanguo the most. Later, Feng Yu explained why Tanguo did not come to their house. It was only a month ago, so they did not think too much about it. Who would have thought that Tanguo's strange behavior was because their good son had expelled her brainwave? Wasn't that equivalent to killing her with his own hands? Mrs. Feng leaned into Mr. Feng's arms and could not stop crying. It's all my fault. If I had been more careful, this tragedy would not have happened. Xiaoguo is such a good girl. She would not have been hurt. Feng Yu has been smart since he was a child. Just like his uncle, he only cares about games. How could we have known that he would do this? Mr. Feng sighed. It's also my fault. I did not teach him well and make him understand that he should not do such a thing. In the future, Mrs. Feng hesitated and said, "Sell the phone games, okay?" Mr. Feng did not hesitate. Feng Yu. Feng is not suitable for making games. Actually, he understood that they just found it hard to accept these things. No matter how great the benefits were, they only felt pain every time they thought about it. I'm ready. This time, I'm going to see Xiaoguo. Feng Yu tapped on the keyboard and held the mouse. After passing through many checkpoints, she finally found the Ghost King's territory. He also saw the bride who was locked in the tomb. He smashed open the tomb and came to her agitatedly. Xiaoguo, I know I've done a lot of wrong. Come with me today. Okay? Kind person, are you here to take me away? Tanguo said. She asked with a smile, but Feng Yu and the people outside couldn't see her real expression. Their hearts sank when they heard her words. Wasn't she Tanguo? Chapter 788. Xiaoguo, come out. Come with me. Okay? Feng Yu finally broke down. That handsome man was in so much pain that the veins on his forehead were popping out. His face was pale and bloodless. As long as you're willing to come out, you can do whatever you want. The Ghost King is too scary. He wants me to be his ghost bride. Can you really take me away? Tanguo said. Feng Yu's eyes widened. His lips and teeth trembled. Why? Why did Xiaogua disappear? Xiaogua. He only typed these 2 words. He didn't know what else to say. The Ghost King's bride wasn't Xiaogua. Then where did his Xiaogua go? Was it because there were too many people here that his Xiaogua was so scared that she didn't dare to come out? If you can't take me away, kind person, you can leave by yourself. Tanghua said. Although the Ghost King is very fierce, he doesn't look like he'll hurt me. This sentence was seen by the audience watching the live broadcast. But Fengyu, who was in so much pain, didn't notice it. Especially that sentence. Although the Ghost King is very fierce, he doesn't look like he'll hurt me. It must be because there are too many of you. You scared Xiaogua. All of you, get out. You're not allowed to watch the live broadcast. When I met Xiaogua alone, she must have seen me. This time, no one accompanied Fengyu in his madness. The audience also turned off the live broadcast. They felt very regretful. Fengyu was taken away and returned to the prison where he lived alone. The person who brought him back placed the computer in his room. Seeing him lying on the bed, lifeless, he could only shake his head. So many prisoners came to the prison. Fengyu was the first one. He was so regretful that he wanted to commit suicide immediately. He didn't sympathize with him. He had to face too many prisoners every day. Many of them were locked up because they had hurt others. There was no need to sympathize with such people. The prison guard thought to himself. The image of his wife and child appeared in his mind. He thought to himself that he must accompany them well during this holiday. He also thought about how because he had worked in the prison for so long, it was inevitable that he would show his fierce and violent side to the prisoners. Sometimes, he would face his wife at home with a gloomy mood. He couldn't help but get angry at her. After reading Fengyu's story, he was a little annoyed at his previous behavior. No matter what happened at work, he should not be angry with his wife. He worked here. His wife had to work, take care of the children, and take care of the family. He did very little for the family. He was angry at his wife the moment he got home. He didn't know how upset she was. He panicked at the thought that one day, his wife would be disappointed and leave him. He would give her a call later and say sorry. He would never do that again. On the day of the holidays, he must buy a bouquet of his wife's favorite flowers for her. Gua. What is it? I found a fun place. Let's go take a look. Sure. Feng Ming knew everything that had happened. With the information given to him by Tanghua, he had no problem traversing the internet at will. Looking at Feng Yu's pained expression, he didn't sympathize with her. He only found it funny. If he were Feng Yu and really wanted to save Xia Yi, he would never choose to take away an innocent person's body for her. Compared to this, he might as well devote himself to researching artificial bodies. Regardless of whether he succeeded or not, there was always a direction to work towards. If Xia Yi was really a person who didn't want to hurt others, even if she didn't succeed in the end, even if they were separated by a screen, they could still live together for the rest of their lives. At the very least, if they really wanted to be together, he could just turn himself into a brainwave and have sex with his beloved on the internet, just like now. Chapter 789. Feng Yu woke up. He quickly turned on the computer. He couldn't believe that Tanghua had disappeared. He entered the game countless times, but unfortunately, he didn't see Tanghua again. Later, he watched the live broadcast that day. In the last game, he saw the line, "Although the Ghost King is fierce, he doesn't look like he will hurt me." His eyes widened. Xiaogua. This was Xiaogua. He quickly looked for the basic settings and looked through the lines of the Ghost King's bride dozens of times. As expected, he didn't see this line. So, the Ghost King's bride was Xiaogua. He shouted that he had found Tanghua and submitted the evidence, saying that he would enter the game again. The person in charge was skeptical. He didn't have much hope, but he was still willing to let Feng Yu try. When the bride said that line, he laughed and said, "Look, I didn't set this line. Xiaogua said this line, so she must be Xiaogua." The person in charge took the game away and prepared to study it. Not long after, he returned and said, "You didn't set the bride's line on the surface because this is a hidden line. The hidden line will appear at specific times. So, this isn't Tanghua." Feng Yu didn't believe it. He didn't believe it at all. He clearly remembered that these 3 games were for Xia Yi to play casually. They weren't that complicated at all. He didn't believe it. He wanted to prove it, but no one believed him anymore. He was crazy. He even beat up the staff and wanted to leave the place. Later, the person in charge thought that his current state was no longer normal. He couldn't help to find Tangwa's brainwaves anymore. He hoped that the higher-ups could take back all his benefits. Since then, Feng Yu was like the other prisoners. He resisted for a while and understood that only by getting out could he find Tangwa's brainwaves. He became proactive and gave people the feeling that he had a great awakening and wanted to turn over a new leaf. He strove to be the one with the best performance. He only hoped that he could get out as soon as possible. As for Xia Yi, she had to cooperate with the research every day. After more than 3 years, she couldn't stand it anymore. During an experiment, her brainwaves were stimulated. She broke free from the control of her body and ran into the internet. Tangwa's body was also in a vegetative state due to the disappearance of her brainwaves. They notified the Tang family, saying that Tangwa's body could die at any time in such a state. The family Tang couple communicated with Tangwa and said that they would wait for a year. If there was still no hope after a year, they would euthanize this body. They did not want their daughter's body to become a test subject. Xiai ran away, and Tangwa couldn't be found. Everyone had no choice but to respect the family's choice. A year later, Tangwa's body was euthanized and cremated. 5 years later, Feng Yu was released early because of her positive performance. After coming out, he devoted himself to searching for Tangwa's brainwaves. He took the 3 games and turned on the computer that he hadn't played in a long time. Today's computers were different from many years ago, but with his ability, he quickly adapted. He started the game. It was the Ghost King's bride game. He came in front of the bride and smiled. "Xiaogua, I'll take you out. I know that this must be you. You've forgotten about me, so you lied to me." Before Tangwa could say anything, Feng Ming arrived. The moment Feng Ming arrived, the two of them left their game avatars at the same time and revealed their true faces. Feng Yu, who was sitting in front of the computer, was stunned when she saw all of this, especially when Feng Ming hugged Tangwa. She couldn't believe it. Chapter 790. He was all too familiar with Feng Ming's face. Feng Ming's face was exactly how he looked when he died. Feng Yu had idolized Feng Ming since she was young. It was also because of Feng Ming that she was able to embark on the path of game design and development. The holographic game was started because of Feng Ming. That year, Feng Ming was not even 25 years old. After he obtained the holographic game plan, he used about 6 to 7 years to perfect everything and understand all of Feng Ming's ideas. This was the difference between him and Feng Ming. One was a genius, while he was just a genius. A genius left something behind casually. He had to spend 6 to 7 years to understand it before he dared to take it out. "Little uncle, is that you?" Feng Yu asked uncertainly. Feng Ming nodded. "It's me." "Then you." He glanced at Tangwa beside him. "Why are you hugging Xiaogua?" He didn't dare to imagine the outcome. He didn't believe it. Feng Ming glanced at his wife and introduced her happily. "This is your sister-in-law." "No." How could Xiaogua be his sister-in-law? He pressed the computer frantically, trying to chase away this man who looked like his little uncle, but his computer was no longer under his control. "Xiaogua, I'm your boyfriend. You just forgot everything between us, so you were deceived by him." Tangwa smiled. "I didn't forget anything. From the moment I lay down in the gaming chamber, you and I were over, Feng Yu. No matter what I do, I can't move you to do anything to me. Didn't you want me to remember our past?" Tangwa smiled. "I never forgot." Feng Yu fell off her chair. Xiaogua had said that she had never forgotten about it. She said that the moment she lay down in the gaming chamber, they were over. She knew the truth. She knew that he wanted to harm her. Our existence has already been revealed to the country. Now that the world has entered holographic technology, my husband Feng Ming and I will become the only human brainwave masterminds in our country. We will control the entire country's network and maintain its security. From the day we appeared, no darkness can escape from our eyes. In a few days, we will meet with all of humanity and hold our wedding ceremony. Tangwa even took out 2 notebooks. She opened them and smiled brightly. "This is our marriage certificate. It's stamped." Feng Ming looked at his little wife's smug expression and only smiled. He didn't expect her to do this after he took control of the internet. His wife was right. Instead of hiding in the internet and living a personal life, he might as well do something meaningful. He was very satisfied with such a little wife. In the future, many people would know that such an outstanding girl was his wife. Both of them had brainwaves. The whole world knew that his wife was very outstanding, but no one could steal her away. Now that the internet was under his control, if humans wanted to become brainwaves, they would have to ask for his permission. He could even help those brainwaves that accidentally wandered into the internet return to where they belonged. It could be said that they already had a transcendent status here. As for the past, no one cared. What the entire human race cared about was this new era. No, Xiaoguo, you should return to your body. Feng Yu said agitatedly. You have a body. You. Chapter 791. Tanghua leaned into Feng Ming's arms and smiled. Body? Isn't it cremated? Cremated? Feng Yu's eyes widened, and he retreated. How could this be? Ming, let's go. I don't want to talk to him anymore. Of course, Feng Ming would listen to his wife. He held his wife's hand, and the two of them disappeared. Feng Yu reacted and wanted to look for them, but he couldn't find them. He smashed his computer and went outside. Looking at this unfamiliar world, his expression became numb. 7 days later, the existence of Tanghua and Feng Ming was known to the entire world. The entire world was shocked. Someone tried to attack their country's network firewall, but they were counterattacked by the two of them. They even lost a lot of important information. In the end, all the countries understood that this country with two powerful brainwaves was not someone they could afford to offend. If they were lucky, the other party might secretly steal their information. During this period, there were also countries that jointly protested and wanted to destroy the two of them. The response had just ended in the countries that expressed their agreement. The next day, their networks were all paralyzed. They clearly knew who did it, but they didn't dare to say anything. In the end, they had no choice but to acknowledge the existence of Tanghua and Feng Ming. Actually, whether they agreed or not was useless to this country that was gradually becoming stronger. No matter who objected and wanted to attack the network, the end result would be that all the networks in the other country would be paralyzed. In this world, no country could do without the internet. Many operations required the internet to be able to be located. From the day the two of them appeared, the entire human race understood that this country that was once looked down upon and suppressed internationally had completely risen. They didn't have an ordinary mainframe, but two human brainwaves with unlimited prospects. They couldn't afford to offend them. The important international conferences in the past were no longer important to this country. From then on, the country's network security was in the hands of the two of them. From that day onwards, the online scammers lost their jobs. At first, they thought that they could use the loophole, but in 2 days, their homes were found and they were all arrested. Later, Feng Ming and Tanghua cooperated with the country to develop the smart brain chip. From then on, they had to use a legal identity to go online. If they wanted to do something bad, they would have to use the country's network. Under the supervision of the two of them, almost no one could escape. Tanghua had a lot of fun. Her life in this world was extended. Even if it was extended, it would only be an extension of 20 years. Ming, I might have to go. Feng Ming's heart trembled. He hugged her and asked, Where are we going? I don't know either. Will we meet again in the next life? Tanghua smiled brightly at him. I think so. In the next life, will Guagua still be my wife? Tanghua glanced at him. The next life is a matter for the next life. No matter how good your performance in this life is, it won't bring you to the next life. So if you want to marry me in your next life, you have to perform better. I understand, Guagua. I will definitely perform better than I have in my entire life. I will appear before you get hurt and protect you. Tanghua was very happy. She hugged him and kissed his face. I like the way you pamper me. I also like to pamper you. Feng Ming suddenly felt that he couldn't hold her anymore. Her figure turned into specks of light and disappeared in front of him. Guagua, wait for me. Chapter 792. After that, Feng Ming rarely appeared in front of humans. Later on, When the person in charge of communicating with Feng Ming was about to do so, he heard a stiff and emotionless voice. "Hello, I'm the mainframe, number 1. When Feng Ming left, he asked me to give you a document. Do you accept the document?" "Accept. Please wait while the document is being transmitted." When he received the document and saw the contents, he couldn't help but cry. The document also said that his wife had left many years ago. He had stayed because his wife liked a warm and sunny world. If he left with her immediately, there would be a lot of trouble here. All these years, they had been on the network. His wife had always been happy. He didn't want to destroy all of this, even if she left. So he spent a lot of time to create a mainframe that could replace him. The document contained all the information about the mainframe, as well as his experiences over the years. After 3 years of monitoring the mainframe, nothing happened. He thought, "I should go. I need to find my wife. I'm afraid that she'll wait too long. I'm also afraid that if I appear too late, she'll be bullied by bad people. So, I'll leave this place to you. I hope you can protect this warm and sunny world." They searched for a long time and finally confirmed that Feng Ming and Tanghua had disappeared. The legends they created were written in history. They were the creators of this era. No one dared to forget them, nor did they want to. "Dear host, you're quite pitiful this time." The system's sympathetic tone was heard. Tanghua swayed around her new image, floating around. She felt that it was quite interesting. She landed on a horizontal branch. Her figure hung on it, completely weightless. Even the branch didn't bend. It didn't even sway. "It's okay. Last time, it was a brainwave. This time, it's a ghost. To be honest, it's quite boring being a brainwave for so long. It's not bad to be a ghost." As she spoke, she controlled her body to float around. If the system had hands, it would really want to cover its eyes. However, the dear host was obviously in a good mood. It hoped that after she received the plot, she could still be in such a good mood. "It's my white bone that's stuck here." Tanghua floated to the edge of the cliff and looked at the body stuck in the crack of the cliff. Its flesh and blood had long rotted away, leaving only bones. "It's kind of familiar. It should be mine." "System, I really don't know what to say." "Host, look at your own bones and you actually look so happy." Tanghua did not care about white bones. She found a comfortable spot on the cliff and hung herself there. Then she said, "All right, you've adapted to your new appearance. You can receive the plot and memories now." This world was a world with ghosts and Taoists. It meant that it was a world with mystical powers. It could also be said that it was a very dangerous world. The original owner was a second-year high school student with a good family background. After the holidays of the second year, she thought about the tense state of the third year and decided to go on a trip with her friends. There were about 6 or 7 boys and girls in total. This time, they chose to travel on their own and did not sign up for a tour group. Inadvertently, they came to this beautiful mountain village. The original owner couldn't have imagined that this place would become her life-threatening cliff. She lost her young life here, and her family couldn't even find her body. Gradually, she gained consciousness and became one of the legendary ghosts. Chapter 793. How did she fall off the cliff? It was because there was a poor mountain village on the other side of the cliff. Occasionally, tourists would come. Most of them were men. They would even stay in the small mountain village. They only felt that this was a small mountain village with simple and honest customs. However, life was unpredictable. The people in this mountain village looked simple, but all the women in the village were bought and abducted from outside. Basically, once they were abducted to this mountain village, they had no chance to leave. They could only stay here for the rest of their lives and give birth to children for the men, the old bachelors, one after another. In this mountain village, where there was a shortage of girls, every family liked boys. If they were unhappy about giving birth to a girl, they might not be able to raise her. If they gave birth to a boy, they had to serve wine. From the day the boy was born, the parents would save money for him. Especially in recent years, it was harder for young girls to buy, making them anxious. This place was very remote, and the people who came to explore and travel were mostly men. Fortunately, there were people who liked to explore, so they could earn some money for their wives. Otherwise, it would not be easy to earn money in such a remote place, and they were unwilling to go out. 3 years ago, the original owner and her friends came to explore and stayed in this mountain village. Other than the original owner, there was another girl, and the rest were all boys. When the two girls appeared in the mountain village, they were sized up by countless people. The day they walked into the village, they were destined to be a tragedy. The villagers teamed up and lied to the boys. They took them to an interesting place the next day, but the place was difficult to walk, and the surroundings were gloomy. It was not suitable for girls to go. The two girls did not think much about it. They felt that it was too difficult to walk, and it was very gloomy and scary, so they did not go. After the boys left, the expressions of the villagers changed greatly. They changed from kind to ferocious and terrifying. They were locked in the cellar. When the boys came back, the villagers told them that the two girls had left, as if there was something urgent. There was no signal in the mountain, so they did not call them. The boys believed it and stayed in the mountain village for a few days before leaving. There was no doubt at all. The two girls were locked up, and they were villagers. They were used to doing this, so it was not easy to be suspected, especially by outsiders. How could they know that the whole village was like this? Those women with numb expressions, nursing their children, who did not look beautiful, who knew that they were once young and beautiful. Those old ladies who looked fierce and cruel, grabbing the girls' arms and even helping their sons rape the girls, who knew that they were once abducted. The original owner and the other girl quickly understood where they were. After the two were released, they were assigned to two bachelors in the village who were in their 30s at most. That girl was held down by the bachelor's parents that day and raped by the bachelor. The original owner was slightly luckier. Her bachelor husband had broken his leg a few days ago, so he couldn't do anything else. Every day when she closed her eyes, she would remember the screams coming from next door. She decided that she must escape. Once she escaped, she would definitely come back to save her good friend. She would capture all the villains in this village and throw them into prison. These vicious, cruel, and foolish people should be severely punished. After pretending to be obedient for a few days, she finally found a chance to escape. Chapter 794. Not long after, she was discovered, but she didn't want to be caught. If she was caught today, she would never have the chance to escape. She thought of the miserable cries of her friends who had been raped and the numb women who were nursing their children. That numb look was as if they had lost their souls. She understood that it was the despair of being unable to resist. Therefore, she ran with all her might, just to escape from this terrifying place. However, she was just a high school girl. How could she outrun those burly men? Seeing that she couldn't escape, she ran up the mountain. Those terrifying men chased after her relentlessly. She had no choice but to jump off the cliff. Compared to being numb in that mountain village for the rest of her life, she would rather die. She didn't jump to the bottom of the cliff. Instead, she was stuck halfway on the cliff. The sharp rocks pierced through her body. She persisted for 3 days before she breathed her last with unwillingness. She hadn't escaped from this place. She hadn't saved her friends. She hadn't announced to the world how terrifying this mountain village was. She hadn't warned those girls who liked to travel not to come here. This was a demon's den, an abyss. Once you entered, you couldn't leave. Perhaps it was because of her unwillingness that she became a ghost. After she woke up, she floated to the fork in the road that led to the village. Whenever she saw girls coming here, she would create a demonic wind around her in an attempt to scare them away. In 3 years, she had stopped many girls who almost walked in. However, the plot had only just begun. It was also the beginning of her second tragedy. That day, she saw a group of young girls coming to play. She used the same trick to scare them away. However, there was a girl named Ning Xiangxi, who was also the female lead of this world. Although she was an ordinary person, she knew that ghosts existed in this world. She felt that the incident that day wasn't simple. However, the ghost didn't do anything to them. She felt that this ghost wasn't powerful. Coincidentally, she knew a disciple of a ghost hunter. He was the male lead of this world, Fang Yunqi. When Fang Yunqi arrived, Ning Xiangxi brought him to the mountain village. The villagers heard that this place was haunted, but they didn't believe it. Fang Yunqi's cultivation wasn't very good. He only found out that their entire village was surrounded by ghost energy. If this continued, they would all die. He said that he wanted to help them exorcise the ghost. The villagers were skeptical. Later, Feng Yunqi showed his ability. Because Feng Yunqi had shown his ability, they didn't dare to have any thoughts about Ning Xiangxi. During their time in the village, they had always acted like honest and simple villagers. Even after Feng Yunqi and Ning Xiangxi went through a lot of hardships and finally killed the female ghost Tanghua, they didn't realize that everyone in the village was a monster with a human face. Whether it was Tanghua, the ghost with the greatest resentment, or those little ghosts, they were all killed by Feng Yunqi mercilessly. The two of them fell in love because of the calamity of life and death. They stepped on the soul of the original owner of the body. Later on, this mountain village was still the same mountain village. The girl who came here to explore still stayed there forever. Feng Yunqi had been catching ghosts in many places, and his cultivation had increased a lot. He could be considered to be famous far and wide. Later on, Ning Xiangxi also did very well. The two of them were very loving and gave birth to a girl. Many years later, the girl was traveling in this mountain village and was caught by the villagers. The two of them arrived quickly, but they were still a step too late. Their daughter had already been bullied by the old bachelor. Feng Yunqi was furious. He used the ghost-catching sword to slaughter the entire village. Chapter 795. An eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. But the original owner's grievances, who would redress her grievances? How many days until Ning Xiangxi comes? About 4 days. Then let's wait. What was the host going to do this time? Stop her or not? Stop her. Of course I have to stop her. Why not? Tanghua hung on a tree branch, smiling as she said, "One of the things I hate the most is seeing disgusting men forcing themselves on girls." But she was Ning Xiangxi. It's the same for everyone. There are countless ways to punish her. I don't want to use this method, but it's fine to teach her a lesson first. The system didn't understand its host. Human emotions were indeed so complicated. Every time it thought it understood, it would feel like it was still missing something after talking to its host. Then what kind of lesson would its host give her? Let me think about it. The system could clearly feel that its host was unhappy. It wasn't because of Ning Xiangxi, but because of this inhumane little village. A few days later, Tanghua waited on the tree branch where the original owner chased away the foreign girls. She saw a few girls coming from afar. This time, she didn't stop them, but watched as they walked into the village. She floated behind them, following them in. With Tanghua's spiritual strength, even if Ning Xiangxi was special, she wouldn't be able to detect her presence. Ning Xiangxi and the girls were warmly received by the villagers because there were a few boys among them. The next day, the villagers used the same trick, tricking the boys to play. After they left, they locked Ning Xiangxi and the girls in the cellar. Tanghua watched them struggle with her own eyes. They were tied up and gagged. The villagers didn't give them food or water. After the boys left, they starved for a few days until they had no energy left. Only then did they bring them out of the cellar. That night, the weak girls were brought to the village chief's yard for everyone to choose from. Ning Xiangxi heard that the villagers were actually discussing their price, and that they were sold to the old bachelors. She was angry and scared, but they had no energy and couldn't escape. In the end, they were brought back to their houses by the bachelors. The villagers also left. When the moon rose, the system felt a murderous aura from its host. Could it be what he was thinking? A beautiful white silk appeared in Tanghua's hand. She chuckled in the direction of the village. I've seen on TV that female ghosts kill people with white silk, especially a beautiful female ghost like me. I'll definitely use white silk. System, as if I'd believe you. Tanghua heard the screams of a young girl coming from one of the houses. She controlled her body and floated into the house. She didn't feel anything at all. When they entered the house, the girl was pressed down by a burly man. She swung the white silk and wrapped it around the man's neck. With a gentle pull, the man's neck broke with a crack. His eyes widened. He never thought that he would be killed at this time. The girl who had been stripped of her clothes also stared blankly at the man who had been killed. She looked at Tanghua, who was floating in the air, and tears streamed down her face. He was scared, but he was also glad. It was a very complicated feeling. He's dead. Yes, dead. Do you want to leave this place? Yes, of course I do. They're all demons. Tangwa floated in front of the girl. Then I'll bring you out. The girl was very scared. But compared to this beautiful female ghost, she was more scared of the dead man. She quickly followed behind Tangwa. Chapter 796. The girl's heart was beating wildly. She glanced at the beautiful female ghost floating in front of her. The other party was holding a piece of white silk that was as white as snow. When she walked out of the courtyard, she hesitated for a moment. Sister, won't we be discovered if we go out like this? No, Tangwa replied. When the girl heard this sweet voice that was completely different from the cold tone from before, she was stunned. Female ghosts nowadays were so beautiful, and their voices were also so pleasant to the ears. Regardless of whether she would be discovered or not, she gritted her teeth and followed Tangwa out. Tangwa brought the girl to a secluded place outside the village to hide. She said to her, "Wait here first. I'll bring the others out." Thank you. The girl was no longer afraid of this floating female ghost. Compared to this female ghost, the people in the village were scarier. Everything that happened just now was like a terrible nightmare, but she clearly understood that it was real. She carefully hid in the grass, only revealing a pair of eyes to watch Tangwa float into the village again. There was worry in her eyes. Tangwa floated around the houses in the village. Around her, there was resentment, and immature little ghosts floated with her. She didn't know if she had killed the man from before, but there were already several little ghosts around her. They even looked at her with a look that said, "Look at me. Do you see me?" They looked very funny. She also recognized that most of these little ghosts were female, and some were male. But their luck was not as good as hers. Due to various reasons, their souls were immature. No matter how long it took, they could only turn into resentment and surround the village. However, they realized that the closer they got to Tangwa, the more solid their souls seemed to be. In the end, there was a group of immature little ghosts around Tangwa. Tangwa ignored them for the time being. Hearing a scream from one of the houses, she jumped down. The window opened, and there were 3 people inside. A young high school girl was being pressed down on the Kong bed and struggling. An old lady was cursing something fiercely and was pulling down the girl's pants. The person who grabbed the girl's hands was a burly, dark-skinned man about 40 years old. He had a scraggly beard and looked very ugly. "Son, quick, hold her down. We're about to succeed." The ferocious old lady saw the girl struggling and pinched her hard. The girl was in so much pain that tears came out of her eyes. She seemed to know that she couldn't escape tonight. Her beautiful eyes instantly lost focus, and she gave up struggling. "Quick, she's not moving." The old lady smiled sinisterly. "Miss, don't be afraid. Which woman doesn't go through this? When you're pregnant and become the child's mother, you'll understand." The man happily took off his pants. The moment he took off his pants, Tangwa held a tile in her hand and gently threw it below him. The man instantly let out a sharp scream. When he came in, Tangwa had set up a soundproof array in the room. No matter how loud he shouted, it would not attract the attention of others. "Son!" The old lady saw with her own eyes that her son's penis had been chopped up by something. She was so frightened that she fell to the ground. "That bastard did this. You'll die a horrible death." Tangwa floated in through the window, playing with the white silk in her hand. She chuckled and said, "Didn't I die a horrible death?" The sudden female voice made the old lady stunned. The old lady got up from the ground. Chapter 797. She yelled at Tangwa fiercely. "Were you the one who chopped off my son's manhood?" "Yes, it was me. I'll fight you to the death." Tangwa casually tossed the white silk, and the old lady was sent flying to the wall. She did not care about the unconscious man who was holding his manhood, nor did she care about the old lady who was sent flying. She came to the side of the Kong bed and looked at the girl whose jeans had been taken off. She patted her. "Do you want to leave this place?" The girl's eyes that had lost their luster gradually recovered. She looked up and saw a female ghost floating in front of her. She subconsciously looked at the situation in the room and saw the man covering his manhood with both hands. There was a pool of blood on the ground and a disgusting thing beside the pool of blood. At that time, she inexplicably heaved a sigh of relief. Compared to the despair from before, she was not afraid of this floating female ghost. Can I walk out? Tangwa smiled and said to her, If you want to walk out, I'll take you out. The girl's eyes reddened. What Tangwa did not expect was that after the girl pulled up her pants, she rushed in front of her and hugged her. She sobbed and said in a choked voice, Thank you. I want to leave this place. Whether you're a human or a ghost, you're the best. You're a human, so you're a good person. You're a ghost, so you must be a good ghost. Let's go. The girl let go of Tangwa and was curious. Are you really a ghost? Why can I hug you? I'm afraid you'll fall. Tangwa could not help but laugh. She was standing by the Kong bed. If the girl rushed over, she would definitely fall if her soul did not solidify. Let's go. The girl did not ask anything and did not care about the old lady and the man in the room. She followed behind Tangwa, her eyes full of worship and dependence. She quickly went forward and grabbed Tangwa's hand. I'm a little scared. Can I hold your hand? Go ahead. My name is Zhou Linlin. What's your name? Tangwa replied, Tangwa. Then I'll call you Guagua. You seem to be about the same age as me. Tangwa smiled faintly, because I've been dead for many years. In fact, I'm still older than you. Guagua sounds nice. Tangwa took Zhou Linlin to the haystack and asked her to wait. She turned around and looked at the two girls who were hugging each other and comforting each other. She carefully hid behind the haystack and floated back into the village. This time, it was the last girl, Ning Xiangxi. After waiting for a long time, she didn't hear Ning Xiangxi's shout, but she heard a man scream. She floated into the room and understood the reason. It turned out that Ning Xiangxi had some skills. She pretended to be obedient and kicked the man's crotch when he wasn't paying attention. Judging by the extent of the man's screams, he probably couldn't use it for the time being. Ning Xiangxi wanted to run, but she was too naive. As soon as she pushed the door open, she was caught by several men and brought back to the house. Her hands were tied behind her back. This time, she couldn't escape. The man, who had been covering his crotch, rushed over to Ning Xiangxi and gave her a tight slap across the face. Stupid bitch. Do you want to die? If I kick your man until he's broken, how can I make you pregnant? Ning Xiangxi said coldly, looking unafraid. I'm going to cut off your roots. You stinky men. I'm going to cut off your roots so that you won't harm others. Chapter 798. The man slapped Ning Xiangxi again, then turned to the men in the room and said, It might be inconvenient for me to be like this for a few months. I wanted to be nicer to her, but I didn't expect this bitch to be so ungrateful. I'll rent her out to you to give birth to your children first. It's fine if she doesn't give birth to your children, but she can also warm your bed. This bitch is so soft and tender. She must be from the city. You guys are in luck. The men didn't hesitate at all. They turned to get the money and handed it to the man. He counted the money and said with satisfaction, I'll lend you the bed too. With that, the man strode away and closed the door behind him. He limped into another room, cursing and swearing. Just as he lay down, a piece of white silk flew in from outside the window and wrapped around his neck. He struggled with his eyes wide open, and in a few moments, he breathed his last. Tangwa turned back to Ning Xiangxi. Ning Xiangxi shouted, and the men walked towards her with strange smiles. Just when Ning Xiangxi thought that she couldn't escape, a white silk floated in and blocked the men's way. Who is it? It's me. Tangwa floated in and looked at them with a smile. Do you still remember me? You. One of the men reacted and widened his eyes. The one from 3 years ago. Yeah, you have a good memory. But tonight, I'm here to take your lives. With that, she flung the white silk and wrapped it around the man's neck. She pulled hard and looked at the men helplessly helping to untie the white silk. She smiled very happily. Just as they were about to go out to get a knife, the white silk extended and wrapped around each of their necks. Their faces turned red and their eyes rolled back. Tangwa casually untied Ning Xiangxi's rope and asked again, Do you want to leave? Of course. Ning Xiangxi answered without hesitation. Then she rushed in front of the men and slapped each of them twice. Then she said to Tangwa, Let's go. Tangwa chuckled and exerted force in her hands. With a few cracking sounds, the men all died instantly. Ning Xiangxi, who had just walked out of the door, turned around stiffly and looked at the man who was lying limp on the ground. She took a few steps back and asked in disbelief, "Why did you kill them all? They have done so many evil deeds. Their deaths are not to be regretted. Why can't we kill them? These are all scourges. Killing one will reduce the number of scourges, so that those who come later will not suffer. Even if they are scourges, you can't just kill people like that. When I get out, I'll naturally have a way to bring them to justice," Ning Xiangxi retorted with a red face. Tangua ignored her. If the rules could really punish these people, would there still be human trafficking in this world? In one of the worlds that she had transmigrated to, there was a county town that had started out as a result of human trafficking. Almost all the women in the county had been abducted and sold. As long as a woman came here, there was basically no hope of escaping. The hawker, the ticket seller, the chauffeur, and so on were all his accomplices. Who could care? It was best to kill this kind of scum. Anyway, the social order in this world was chaotic. There were gods, demons, and monsters. She was a ghost, not a human. She was not under the control of the human world. Whatever she did, she could do as she wished. Ning Xiangxi tried to reason with her, but she didn't listen. She didn't need to follow these rules that shackled the victims. Tangua drifted out and said to Ning Xiangxi, "If you want to leave, hurry up." Chapter 799. She found their backpacks and brought Ning Xiangxi to the haystack outside the village. "You can leave now." Ning Xiangxi's face was still pale, but it was obvious that it was better to leave as soon as possible. She glanced at Tangua. "If you kill too many people, you'll be punished by the heavens. You're a female ghost, so you should know that." Tangua smiled as she hung on the tree. She only said to Zhou Linlin and the other girl, "Go ahead. Don't look back. You can leave safely." "I'll be back," Zhou Linlin said. "I'll expose everything here. Guogua, wait for me. I'll tell the people outside everything. I'll find your parents and tell them what happened here. I'll make sure the people here are punished," Zhou Linlin said with a serious face. He let Tangua see the original owner in her memory. When she escaped from the village, she also thought the same. "Okay, go ahead." The other girl was called Xiaoyu. Her face was still pale. Zhou Linlin held her hand, and the three of them left quickly. Tangua turned invisible and followed them for a while. The sky was dark, and they left at 5 o'clock. When they found a place with signal, they couldn't wait to call their families. They waited until dawn, but they didn't rush to take a taxi. At about 8 o'clock, their family members drove over and picked up the three girls who were in a sorry state. Thus, Tangua returned to the village. The original owner wanted to kill the people in the village like her, but the original owner didn't have enough soul power. There was something in the village that deterred them. However, she wasn't afraid. Even if there were supernatural beings and ghosts in this world, she would be able to defeat as many Taoists as there were demons and ghosts. After transmigrating through so many worlds, she wouldn't be able to survive in this place. She wasn't interested in knowing the situation in the village. She hung on the road leading to the village. Bored, she entered the group chat to chat with her friends. "I'm a ghost this time." When the people in the group saw her, they were very happy. They all asked her what she had experienced in this world. She smiled and told them the story of this world. When the people in the group saw it, they were very nervous. "Ziyun Dao Master, little sister, you're a soul now. If the ghost catcher Taoist really comes, you won't be in any danger, right?" The others were also very worried. This group had already become a part of their lives, and Tangua was the core of this part. In particular, the few people who had met her in person were especially worried. This world isn't as dangerous as the world of cultivation. Those ghost hunters won't be able to do anything to me. Don't worry. Then, everyone asked her other questions and shared some good things with her. Dao Master Ziyun and the others were still worried about her safety, so they sent her several big red envelopes. She opened them and saw that they were all immortal items. They said that as long as she wore the immortal tool, no matter how powerful the ghost hunter Taoist was, he wouldn't be able to do anything to her. She thanked him sincerely and sent him some of the good things she had obtained from these worlds. There were bracelets, earrings, and hairpins. The familiar refining method made her realize that these were all prepared for her by perfected monarch Qi Xiao. There were also several jade bottles that Tao Master Ziyun had refined for her on the spot. They were all medicinal pills that could replenish soul power. Mo Yuntian gave her a spirit summoning banner, saying that if she encountered a powerful evil spirit, she could use it to refine it and use it. Not only could she control the evil spirit, but she could also absorb its baleful aura. There was also a storage ring. She opened it and was stunned. She opened them and saw that they were all immortal items. They said that as long as she wore the immortal tool, no matter how powerful the ghost hunter Taoist was, he wouldn't be able to do anything to her. She thanked him sincerely and sent him some of the good things she had obtained from these worlds. There were bracelets, earrings, and hairpins. The familiar refining method made her realize that these were all prepared for her by perfected monarch Qi Xiao. There were also several jade bottles that Tao Master Ziyun had refined for her on the spot. They were all medicinal pills that could replenish soul power. Mo Yuntian gave her a spirit summoning banner, saying that if she encountered a powerful evil spirit, she could use it to refine it and use it. Not only could she control the evil spirit, but she could also absorb its baleful aura. There was also a storage ring. She opened it and was stunned. Li Meiyun looked at her two sons hugging her legs and the child crying in the old lady's arms. She was very hesitant. She wanted to leave this place. For the past 10 years, there was not a day that she did not want to leave. However, she knew that she couldn't leave. She could only live on numbly. Compared to the others, she did not suffer any abuse in this family. Especially these 3 sons, she couldn't bear to part with them. While she was hesitating, a voice entered her ears. You can't bear to part with your children. Your heart is softened, right? Chapter 801. Yes, her heart softened. Think about it. You came here 10 years ago and lost 10 years of your youth. Your originally glorious life was taken away by them. I know you want to leave this place. Of course, she wanted to. If you can't bear to leave your children, why must you stay here? If you don't leave, you will become that old lady, and your son will become that husband who forced you. After a long time, 3 innocent girls will come to your house. You will force them like how the old lady forced you. Li Meiyun felt dizzy when she thought of that scene. No, she didn't want to become that old lady. They are sinners. If you want, you can take your 3 children and leave. Of course, the difficulties you will face will be greater. It will not be easy for a woman to raise 3 sons. However, those people outside will not leave you alone. You will have a chance to live a good life outside. Li Meiyun didn't know who was talking to her, but she seemed to understand something. She said to the staff, I want to leave, but I want to take my 3 sons with me. According to your situation, you can take your children away. Li Meiyun smiled. With the help of the staff, the villagers couldn't stop her at all. She took her 3 sons into the car. Tangwa floated on the roof of the village and laughed. I hope she can persevere. Host, do you mean that she might not be able to persevere? Tangwa laughed softly. Yes, she hesitated at this place that hurt her. She can't bear to part with her children. It can be seen that she has a soft personality. She didn't get beaten much in this family. It's not because the old lady and her husband are reasonable and kind people. It's because she is weak and timid. She didn't dare to resist when she saw what happened to those girls who ran away. If she was obedient, she wouldn't have encountered those things. Then why did Host remind her? I just want to see how numb people can be when they become numb. She raised her head and looked at the white clouds floating in the sky. The weather today was exceptionally good. The women in the village heard that they could leave. Some of them were numb and didn't react. After the staff spoke for a long time, there was silence, indicating that they were unwilling to leave. There were also some whose eyes regained their vigor. They didn't hesitate to stop them and left resolutely. Xiufeng, are you really leaving? Don't you want me and your child anymore? The woman called Xiufeng turned around and sneered. Want you? She cried and laughed. I hate this place, I hate you. I hate everything here, and I hate the 2 bastards I gave birth to. This place has only brought me pain. Have you forgotten? 8 years ago, when I came here, I was only in my early 20s. How did your family treat me then? Xiaofang's face was covered in tears. I didn't want to. So the old woman and the old man pressed down on my hands and legs, letting you rape me. Tell me, why would I be reluctant to part with you? I hate you so much that I want nothing more than to kill you. You are a rapist. No matter how good you are to me, you are still a rapist. This place is the nightmare of my life. It's great that I can still leave. Even if I have to pick up trash and beg for food, even if I have to reduce my lifespan by 20 years when I go back, I'm willing. After saying that, she limped into the car without hesitation. She wiped away her tears and smiled happily. He could finally get rid of this damned place. Chapter 802. Those who were willing to leave were taken away. Those who were unwilling to leave stayed. Zhou Linlin had been looking forward to punishing the people here. However, it was not easy to punish this backward and numb village. There were many people in the village. The abduction of their women had already angered the villagers, because the children who were left behind could not have taken everyone away. Zhou Linlin could not accept it, but she had no choice. She said that she was looking for a girl who went missing 3 years ago. The villagers denied that there was no such person. The staff also went to look for her, but they did not find anything. In the end, Zhou Linlin's family took her away. She struggled and was unwilling. When she was taken away, she shouted that she would contact Tangwa's family as soon as possible. She must be very disappointed. Tangwa looked at the angry Zhou Linlin and smiled. It's okay. Leave this to me. She would look for the family of that body in the future. After those people left, the villagers were filled with righteous indignation. The people outside could not do anything to them. Criticism and education were of no use to them. I'm thinking that a few people died. This matter is not right. Could it be that what Dezhuang and Dezhuang's mother said was true? Our village was haunted by a female ghost. Is that why all these things happened? To them, those women were taken away. They were only angry and did not repent. This time, a few men in the village were taken away. The village chief and the man who often went out to bring in girls were among them. As for the others, nothing happened. When the village chief was taken away, they panicked at first. However, they quickly elected a new village chief. In their eyes, they did nothing wrong. The people outside were too barbaric. They bought their wives with money. Weren't women used to give birth? Those people were making a fuss over nothing. There might really be a female ghost. Should we find 2 Taoist priests to drive it away? I think so. This matter is too strange. I've never heard of a girl escaping from our village. I think it's really the work of a female ghost. Oh right, let's get some black dog blood and splash it at the door. The female ghost is afraid of that. Wipe the Buddha statue at the entrance of the village clean. It's passed down from our ancestors. The statue must be dirty. That's why the female ghost ran in. Yes, yes, yes. Hurry up. Dear host, what are you going to do now? The system asked curiously. Tangwa scanned the village. I'm going to look for someone I know. I didn't see her before, so I wonder how she's doing. The system understood that it was the original owner's friend. According to the memory, Tangwa came to the room next to the original owner's room. The girl was here. She floated in and saw 2 old men and a burly man. The family of 3 sat in the house. The old man and the man were smoking. The old lady was squatting at the threshold, looking worried. From the looks of it, I'm afraid we won't be able to buy any girls for the time being, the old lady said. The old man took a puff of smoke and exhaled. Those people outside are meddling in other people's business. How our village finds a wife is our village's business. Besides, we've already spent money and now we've taken her away. It's also that girl's fault for being too stubborn. Otherwise, we would have had grandchildren long ago. The old man took another puff of his cigarette and said, It's all because of Youngzi. You bought him and treated him well. You beat him up for no reason, the old lady said. Chapter 803. The silent man threw away the cigarette in his hand and said angrily, It's all because that woman is too stubborn. She's as stubborn as a cow. I told her to stay in the village and give birth to a child for me. She won't be short of food. In the end, She wanted to kill me with a knife in the middle of the night. If I didn't react fast enough, I would have been the one killed. The smile on Tang's face disappeared. Oh, so she was killed by him. Okay, let's not talk about this. The old man was a little impatient. The old lady's face suddenly changed. Old man, Yongzi, do you think the female ghost in the village is Ji Yufei? Ji Yufei, the good friend of the original owner. Tangwa didn't expect Ji Yufei to have such a tragic end. The original owner couldn't enter the village, so she didn't know what happened to Ji Yufei. She didn't know about it until Fang Yunqi killed her. That's hard to say. The old man stopped smoking. The three of them looked at each other and couldn't help but recall that night. Ji Yufei pretended to be obedient for 2 days, and they thought she was really obedient. They didn't expect that she would take a kitchen knife and slash at Yongzi that night. Yongzi reacted quickly and his arm was cut. At that time, he pushed Ji Yufei away and shouted, startling the other two. The two rushed in and grabbed Ji Yufei. Yongzi was in a lot of pain. He looked at the kitchen knife on the ground and didn't think. He picked it up and slashed Ji Yufei's body. They clearly remembered that Ji Yufei was smiling when she died. She even said, "It's good that she's dead. It's good that she can't escape. It's better that she's dead." Later, when they saw the room full of blood, they realized. It was raining outside, and they dragged her out to bury her in the middle of the night. Now that they thought about it, and combined it with the murder case that happened in the village a few days ago, they felt creepy. Didn't the village send someone to invite a Taoist priest? The old lady asked. Yes, we sent Sanwazi. He often goes outside and has many connections. He should be here in a few days. Yongzi replied. The old madam hesitated for a moment. Why don't we visit Ji Yufei tomorrow and burn some offerings for her? Yongzi was a little impatient, but thinking about those men who had died an unnatural death, he still nodded. All right, burn some tomorrow. When the Taoist priest comes, if it's really her, we can't let her off. Soon, the three of them returned to their rooms to sleep. Tangua was sitting on the roof of the village, surrounded by those little ghosts. She took out a soul-replenishing pill. The little ghosts around her smelled it and approached it carefully, as if they were wondering if it was for them. This is for you guys. Hurry up and condense your soul bodies. I have something to ask you guys later. Hearing Tangua's words, the little ghosts didn't hesitate to absorb the soul-replenishing pills. After half a night, their souls gradually took shape and they were able to speak. They looked at each other and bowed to Tangua. They had died in the village, and there was a Buddha statue at the entrance of the village. They could not leave, and their souls, which were not fully formed to begin with, had dissipated because of the Buddha statue. There were already many like them, and now they had become the resentment that surrounded the village. Because of the Buddha statue, the resentment could not do anything to the villains in the village. Ji Yufei, do you know her? Tangua asked. The girl that the three of them were talking about in the room just now, the one who was killed by them. The little ghosts quickly nodded and pointed to the entrance of the village. She went out? Tangua frowned. Chapter 804. The little ghosts shook their heads. One of the female ghosts said, Ji Yufei wanted to go out, but she was dispersed by the light of the Buddha statue. Now, she has become the resentment of the village. After the little ghosts finished speaking, they saw the girl sitting under the moonlight with a cold expression. Her eyes looked down and swept through the houses in the village. Finally, the figure jumped down, followed by a few screams. After a while, she came back up. Her soft voice could be heard. Where is that Buddha statue? The plot also mentioned this powerful Buddha statue. If it wasn't for this Buddha statue, with Fang Yunqi's half-baked cultivation, he wouldn't have been able to kill the original owner. Just the resentment of the village was enough to make him suffer. Do you want to go there? The female ghost's pale face revealed a worried expression. The Buddha statue is very scary. It was originally buried by the soil because of the rain a few days ago. But a few days ago, the people in the village wiped the Buddha statue clean. We little ghosts don't dare to go there. Are you sure you want to go there? It's very likely that your soul will dissipate. Take me there. The little ghosts didn't dare to disobey Tangua's order. They floated down from the roof. The closer they got to the village, the slower they floated. Tangwa didn't feel anything, but she could feel the location of the Buddha statue. You guys wait here. I'll go there myself. The souls of these little ghosts might really dissipate if they got close. The little ghosts sighed in relief. But when they saw Tangwa approaching the village, their hearts were in their mouths again. In just a few days, the things that Tangwa did made them feel relieved. Some of them were abducted, and some of them had been here for a long time. But without exception, their deaths couldn't be separated from the people in this village. Tangwa's appearance undoubtedly gave them a lot of hope. It wasn't easy to wait for hope. If it disappeared just like that, wouldn't they have to continue waiting? Tangwa easily walked in front of the Buddha statue. The Buddha statue wasn't big. It was only the length of half an arm and the width of a palm. The body of the Buddha had been wiped clean, and there was a faint Buddha light on it. It was of no use to her, but to the little ghosts behind her, it would be very harmful. She squatted down and reached out to take the Buddha statue. In an instant, the Buddha statue emitted a golden light and rushed towards Tangwa. She smiled and dispersed it. When the worried little ghosts saw this scene, they were very excited and floated around on the spot. Tangwa reached out and picked up the Buddha statue. She looked at it carefully for a while and confirmed that it was indeed an orthodox Buddha statue to ward off evil spirits. It should have been left here by a Buddhist master. She wondered if the ancestors of this village had received the kindness of that Buddhist master so they could have this. You're protecting the wrong person, Tangwa said. As a Buddhist cultivator, you have protected this village for so many years. You have committed so many sins. You are guilty. I'll find another place for you. Tangwa brought the Buddha statue to the fork in the road. She cut a hole in the tree branch and placed the Buddha statue on it. You should look at this evil road. You shouldn't be protecting the people in the village, but the innocent people who come in from the outside. She saw the Buddha statue flash. The golden light on its body actually retracted. The Buddha body that was originally made of copper slowly changed. In the blink of an eye, it merged with the tree trunk. The Buddha body turned from copper to wood. It looked like it grew on the tree trunk. No one would think that it was the Buddha statue just now. Benefactress is right. This poor monk is guilty. The Buddha statue opened its mouth to speak. Tangwa wasn't surprised, but the system was. Was this possible? So this was a living Buddha statue? Chapter 805. This penniless monk did not know that a moment of benevolence back then had actually left behind a disaster here. It is this penniless monk's fault. The Buddha statue's face was expressionless. Back then, this penniless monk was injured by a demon and fled here. I was saved by the villagers, and before I left this Buddha statue behind to protect their safety. I didn't expect that this was a group of evil people. Yes. The Buddha statue sighed. Once this matter is settled, this penniless monk is willing to expiate all the wraiths here for 100 years and send them all into the cycle of reincarnation. I will also pray for their blessings in the next life. Tangwa smiled. Master, you mean to say that you don't care about the people inside? You don't care about what will happen to them? I don't care, and I can't care. Female benefactor seems to be full of evil aura, but in fact, you have a strong power of merit protecting you, as well as a mysterious power that this penniless monk doesn't know about. Since I can't care about them, I might as well not care. Buddhist cultivator, you are really interesting. Tangwa could not help but laugh. You know that you can't provoke me, so you don't provoke me. A wise man submits to circumstances. This sentence is known to the world. Female benefactor, since you have a strong power of merit protecting you, you are someone that this penniless monk cannot provoke. It's been a long time since I've seen a Buddhist cultivator who is so good at reading people's faces. Tangwa turned to leave. Then it's a deal. Once this matter is settled, you will expiate their souls, help them gather their souls, and send them into the cycle of reincarnation. A monk does not lie. Tangwa did not say anything more to the Buddhist cultivator and turned to return to the village. When the little ghosts saw her coming back, they quickly surrounded her with reverence in their eyes. That Buddhist cultivator will not protect this village anymore. What do you want to do? Go now. All of this is his sin. After you have taken your revenge, He will expiate your souls and send you into the cycle of reincarnation. He will promise you a good next life as compensation. When the little ghosts heard this, they looked at Tangwa pitifully. They were souls and could not cry at all, but from their expressions, one could see that they were grateful and touched. They hesitated for a moment before asking, "Can we really take revenge?" "Of course, with me here, there won't be any accidents. Back then, it was the one who harmed you. You can go find whoever you want. There's no need to be polite. None of the people here are innocent." The little ghosts became excited. They bowed to Tangwa, then turned around and went to find their enemy. There were also some little ghosts who did not go in. They said, "Our enemies are all dead, and their descendants are basically extinct. Who asked the men here to be single for the rest of their lives? All these years, even though many people have bought wives, they still haven't given birth to a son for them. Perhaps this is retribution." In fact, the moment the Buddha statue was taken away by Tangwa, the resentment of the entire village had already boiled. They surrounded the village, causing the entire village to be filled with a gloomy aura. Even ordinary people would know that there was a problem when they saw such a village and would definitely not enter. Tangwa was sitting on the roof of a house. It was the house where Ji Yufei used to stay. Little Ghost, who didn't take revenge, was sitting beside her, his eyes full of admiration. They were thinking in their hearts, could this be the Ghost King in the legends? Otherwise, how could she not be afraid of the Buddha statue? In short, they were very impressed with her. "Where do you plan to go in the future?" Tangwa's lips curved. "I don't know." "Oh, can we follow you?" The little ghosts looked at her expectantly. "You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.